Certain moments in history are ingrained into our lives. They're unforgettable. Some of you may remember where you were when you found out that JFK was assassinated. Or maybe you'll never forget what was happening when you heard that bin Laden had been killed. And for our Democrat friends, one moment will always be etched into their memories: when they found out Hillary wasn't going to be president.
Donald J. Trump is now president of the United States.
Best day I've had in a long time. Great day.
And if you ask some people, decades from now, we'll all remember where we were when Cassidy Hutchinson testified before the January 6th committee. You may be asking, who's Cassidy Hutchinson? It's a good question. Took a while for primetime to figure it out, but she was apparently a low-level junior staffer at the Trump White House. But this junior staffer became the leading lady in yesterday's made-for-TV drama. The New York Times described it as a very special episode and a jaw-dropping production. Is this a serious congressional committee or an episode of West Wing? Because her testimony was reviewed by a New York Times TV critic. Cassidy was cast perfectly for this role. She gave the audience, Schiff and Cheney especially, exactly what they wanted to hear. A jam-packed action scene straight out of 24. I mean, the Trump White House.
He thought that they were going up to the Capitol, and when Bobby had relayed to him, "We're not," the president said something to the effect of, "I'm the effing president, take me up to the Capitol now." To which Bobby responded, "Sir, we have to go back to the West Wing."
This is where the action picks up some serious steam, so viewer discretion is advised.
The president reached up towards the front of the vehicle to grab at the steering wheel. Mr. Engel grabbed his arm, said, "Sir, you need to take your hand off the steering wheel." Mr. Trump then used his free hand to lunge towards Bobby Engel, and when Mr. Renato had recounted this story to me, he had motioned towards his clavicles.
The only thing missing were reenactments. But don't worry, primetime has that covered.
I'm crashing the gate. No. It's 8 feet tall and Joe hard steel. We're not going to make it. Left. Where's the garage clicker? Where's the clicker? I don't have a clicker.
I think I've seen the presidential limo driving across the ground.
It was TV gold, and the media loved it. They rushed out articles like this saying, "Trump lunged for an agent's throat on January 6th. But excitement got the best of him. It's what happens when you're watching an action movie. Sometimes you just forget it's not real. And here's where they got lost. First of all, Hutchinson says a Secret Service agent told her this all went down inside of the Beast. But Trump was never in the Beast when this allegedly happened. There's literally video of him getting inside of an SUV after his rally, the same car that took him back to the White House. Do you really think the Secret Service agents can't tell the difference between the Beast and an SUV? Also, there were 3 agents with him in the car. The driver, an agent in the passenger seat, and 1 agent in the back. Can you really imagine the President of the United States leaping out of his seat, bypassing 2 agents, and somehow grabbing the throat of a Secret Service agent while also reaching for the steering wheel with his other hand? They said this president couldn't even walk down a ramp. And now all of a sudden he's Bruce Willis. Hutchinson wasn't even in the car when any of this happened. She says this one Secret Service agent told her about it. But the agent says, "No, I didn't." And he's willing to testify. You think Schiff will let him? I doubt it. It would ruin the plot. And the guy's got impeccable credentials, over 23 years of service under his belt. The committee never even checked in with him to confirm the story. Hey guys, did Trump go full-blown action hero in the Beast on the 6th? They didn't want to check with the Secret Service because they didn't want to know the truth. They just want drama to smear Trump with and tee up an indictment so that he can't run. And Cassidy Hutchinson, little background on her, just dumped her pro-Trump lawyer for a Democrat-friendly lawyer 3 weeks before her testimony. And all of a sudden her testimony is filled with bombshells. What a coincidence. And she had her lines down pat.
I was in the vicinity of a conversation where I overheard the president say something to the effect of, I don't effing care that they have weapons. They're not here to hurt me. Take the effing mags away. Let my people in. They can march to the Capitol from here. Let the people in.
Did you catch that? She was in the vicinity of a conversation, and he said something to the effect of. Is that how people talk? Because most people say, I was there and I heard something or I didn't hear anything. All this sounds a little bit like a stretch to me. But that was basically her whole testimony. Watch.
And he had responded something to the effect of, we're going to the Capitol. Said something to the effect of, there's a lot going on, Cass. Mr. Cipollone said something to the effect of, the president said something to the effect of, I'm the effing president. He said something to the effect of, he's really ticked off about this.
Has she been coached to say something
right.
to the effect of?
Exactly.
So she doesn't perjure herself? A little legal wiggle room? Truth doesn't matter. That's why you have Cheney hugging Hutchinson after her big debut. Why would a fair congressional investigator hug a witness? Isn't this supposed to be impartial? It's not, and it never was. And whenever Adam Schiff gets involved, you can't trust the process.
Do you have any concerns, though, Congressman, that the story, about him sort of lunging for the Secret Service agent and lunging for the steering wheel is not true?
Look, I believe Cassidy Hutchinson. I think she's a very smart, very capable, very honest individual. She has no incentive to make up something that isn't true. And so I think she's a very credible witness.
If Adam Schiff thinks someone's credible, you better check it yourself. This is the same guy who got goosed by a bunch of Russian pranksters.
Okay, who's Godfather? And what's the nature of the compromise?
Well, there were pictures of naked Trump.
And so Putin was made aware of the availability of the compromising material?
Yes, of course.
Thank you very much. We will be back in touch with you through our staff to make arrangements to obtain these materials for our committee and for the FBI.
And Schiff couldn't wait to see pictures of naked Trump. Plus, he's the one that ran with the Steele dossier, and who could forget the P-tape? This testimony is basically Adam Schiff's P-tape. Gossip that's been debunked, but it's put out into the public to damage Trump. Who cares if it's true or not? 3, 2, 1, action. Think of all the man hours Congress put into this hearing. That Congress could have spent, trying to keep our streets safe. This just happened in Philly. Watch. Instead of protecting our streets, Democrats are doing everything they can to protect their own power. If they think January 6th makes a great movie, wait until they hear about Hunter Biden and the big guy. It's a scandal with everything. Chinese spies, Russian prostitutes, drugs, strippers, illegal guns. The first son being bribed with diamonds, a lost laptop, a lost diary, an affair with your dead brother's widow. Kickbacks from communists, Air Force Two, a rigged election, a federal money laundering investigation. Hello? We don't even need testimony on secondhand gossip. We have the President of the United States leaving a voicemail for his son, telling him he's in the clear, after the media exposes corrupt business deals with the Chinese. Listen.
Hey, pal, Dad, it's 8:15. On Wednesday night, you get a chance to give me a call. Nothing urgent. Just want to talk to you. I thought the article, released this thing online, it's going to be printed tomorrow in Times, was good. I think it's clear.
And Adam Schiff, Hunter was wired $1 million from Beijing to represent a Chinese spy who was under FISA surveillance, who got popped for corruption in New York. The FISA surveillance that you guys abused to spy on Trump but didn't find anything? But if that's not sexy enough for you, Adam, since we know you're into P-tapes, Joe Biden wired his son $100,000 that he used to pay Russian escorts that happened to be trafficked out of Moscow. Is Biden being blackmailed? The answer is, yeah, probably, but by who? There's so many candidates. Here's Hunter telling one of the prostitutes to just chill.
There's anything hurt on you? Anything? I was
literally saying, I'm sorry that it took so long to give you $10,000. Have I ever touched you in a bad way? Ever? Have I asked you every time if I could touch you? Every time. Sweetheart, look at me. You cannot talk to me that way and say things like that.
Guess you can.
Because I'm more respectful than anyone you've ever met.
Can you imagine if this were Eric or Don? And what is with Joe Biden's son recording his crimes? This is the smartest person you know, Joe? A criminal who records his crimes? So when's the next installment of the January 6th committee? Oh, it'll be in 2 weeks because Congress is going on vacation. Record high gas and food prices, no baby formula, an open border, and crime wave. But hey, let's put on a political trial and then we'll take a 2-week break.
But it's related to Biden,
No
so it's
one
okay.
will remember where they were when Cassidy Hutchinson testified. But I'll remember where they weren't. They weren't at work, representing the American people. Kevin McCarthy is the House Minority Leader and soon to be Speaker of the House. Did you catch any of this Cassidy testimony? What'd you think?
You know, I was working most of the day, so I saw it on Twitter and others. But an interesting thought. Remember who they hired to put this on? An ABC producer who, prior to being hired in 2019, I sent a letter to ABC because this is the same producer that had all the Epstein information but kept it out.
You're right.
And think of the similarities when you have Adam Schiff on this committee. Remember when he said, we have a whistleblower coming forward in the impeachment, and he didn't know who it was? And then later we found out the staff had met with him and coached him?
Mm-hmm.
Or remember when Adam Schiff changed the text on what Jim Jordan said? And remember this committee did the same thing to Jim Jordan? Or what about when he lied to the American public as chair of the Intel Committee, saying the Hunter Biden whole article was Russia collusion?
Right.
Or remember when he said he had proof about the Russia collusion and he put America through this? And then you also have another member on there, Raskin. Remember what he did? Between Trump being elected and before he sworn in, he held a rally to say Trump needs to be impeached. This is just the continuation. They're obsessed with Trump and this is all they want to do. But this hearsay would never be allowed in the court of law. And now you've got the agents have already testified to this committee, not once, but twice. And it's not just that. Remember when they put up, I saw yesterday, they put up a handwritten note. And they asked Cassidy, did you write this note? Yes, I did. Well, they told us prior, no, she didn't write the note. The attorney in the White House wrote that note. And he came out and said, yes, that's the case too. So Liz Cheney knew that because she already told us that, and portrayed this to be something different yesterday.
So what are you guys going to do when you get in there after November, you're sworn in the next year? Are we going to follow up on this? I mean, did she perjure herself? Are you going to investigate how this all went down? And what else could you possibly subpoena out of this White House? You guys are going to run out of paper.
Look, we're already sending the letters out there on all sorts of things. Why did the Attorney General go after parents? Why don't we know where COVID actually originated from?
That's a good one.
So we have more than 500 letters because we're prepared. But you know what the very first thing we're going to do? We're going to lower the price of gasoline. We're going to make us energy independent. We're going to secure the border so our children won't be being killed by the fentanyl that's coming across it. Or there won't be another 51 people in the back of a trailer for human trafficking. We're going to make sure that parents have a Bill of Rights so they have a say in their kids' education.
The voters are smart
We're
enough
going to
to
make
know
our
how to vote.
streets safe again. But at the same time, we're going to hold this administration accountable. And we're going to look into all of this that's happening because this is wrong. But we're not going to do what the Democrats did, right? Where they totally put a system where they don't let the minority ever appoint. They've never allowed that before. They'll be on the committee because they'll be appalled at what went on with this administration.
Good, because COVID killed 1 million Americans and they're not even investigating it.
Nope.
They're investigating hearsay, and that has to stop.
We'll have late night shows on how we end inflation, how we become energy independent, how we secure our border, how we end the crime, and we make the next century ours.
Speaking of late night shows, when are we going to see the mugshots from the Colbert 7? The insurrectionists and the little puppet?
Now, look,
Are we going to get some video of them trying to bash through the door?
You know the hard part is, they showed on January 6th video from when in my office, but then the video of the other office in the hallway, they said they can't find it.
No, they can't find it.
They can't find the Colbert. They could find the January 6th video.
They're never going to find it.
Yeah.
It's gone. Like Hillary's emails, just gone.
But you know, the Capitol Police did a very good job that day. They were already kicked out in the afternoon, and then they got let back in. You know who let them back in? A former shift staff.
Of course. You know, he's got his fingerprints on everything, and they're filthy, because we know what he likes.
But I'll promise you this. When I'm Speaker, he will not be on the Intel Committee anymore. And you know what else? Swalwell won't either. I don't know if this is a high bar, but if you have a relations with a Chinese spy, you shouldn't be allowed to be on the Intel Committee.
Bottom line.
You know, we're going to raise the bar.
Let's do it. Congressman, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Soon to be Speaker, Kevin McCarthy. Anthony Fauci just caught COVID again. And we found out he's not following the proper protocols. Stay with us.
Good for everybody else, not good for them.
When Dr. Fauci tested positive for COVID-19 a few weeks ago, the primetime team was happy to hear that he was going to be okay. His symptoms were mild. That's the magic of being quadruple vaxxed, right? Well, that's what they told us. But then out of nowhere, we got some news that nobody saw coming. Fauci tested positive for the virus again. And this time, his symptoms were much worse. Now, you're probably wondering, how could this be?
He's been
What happened?
vaccinated.
Well, it turns out the good doctor decided to try out Pfizer's new COVID drug, and it didn't go well.
Given my age, I went on Paxlovid for 5 days, and I felt really quite well, just a bit of rhinorrhea and fatigue. And after I finished the 5 days of Paxlovid, I reverted to negative on an antigen test for 3 days in a row. And then on the 4th day, just to be absolutely certain, I tested myself again, and I reverted back to positive by the antigen test. So it was sort of what people are referring to as a Paxlovid rebound. And then over the next day or so, I started to feel really poorly, much worse than in the first go-around.
COVID likes Fauci so much, after they broke up the first time, he rebounded with another case of COVID. But why was Fauci experimenting with all of these COVID drugs?
Really?
Pfizer's own studies have proven that Paxlovid is pretty ineffective, especially for vaccinated people. And the CDC warned back in May that the drug could lead to a COVID rebound. So Fauci's not following the science.
Yeah, what happened to following
Why
the
is
science?
the doctor ignoring warnings from the CDC and studies from Pfizer? Didn't Fauci tell us that he is the science? At this point, we have no idea what Fauci's up to, or what other radical therapies he's experimenting with. So we have to ask, what's next? Ivermectin?
Yeah, really.
Hydroxychloroquine? This is all very confusing because of all people, we would have thought that Fauci would have known the proper protocol. But listen, we sincerely hope that COVID and Fauci break up for real this time. No more flings, no more rebounds, just end it. And we honestly hope the man gets better. We need Fauci in good health. Especially when the Republicans take the House, he can be subpoenaed and testify under oath. Dana Lash is a nationally syndicated radio host who joins us now. What are the chances, Dana, of this guy, Dr. Fauci, getting COVID and then getting COVID again in a week later? What are the chances of that?
He's the brain
Yeah.
for COVID.
I don't know.
He's the country's
I would
doctor.
ask science himself about the chances for that. I don't know if this is gain of function that he loves so much, getting a leg up. I mean, I don't know what he does in his lab at night. Nobody knows. But Jesse, I think your last statement right before you came to me was that if the Republicans aren't cutting that as an ad, then they're ridiculously stupid, because I think everybody would love to see him talk to a House subcommittee during a hearing on this and testify under oath. But I mean, really, how many times have we heard this? I mean, Justin Trudeau just went through this. You had Gavin Newsom just went through this. There are a number of elected officials that have gotten it in a 3-month span. Look, I had the communist plague that everyone calls coronavirus. I had it over Christmas, my whole family, and never got it again. Never had it again. And I had the natural injection, natural immunity, which he doesn't ever seem to talk about still to this day. So who knows? Ask science himself.
All right, well, I want to make it clear that we really do sincerely, and I'll speak for you, Dana, because I know you don't want to see anything bad happen to Fauci. He's an American.
Of course not.
He's our brother, and whatever. We hope he gets better, but it's ironic.
We're not those other networks.
No, we don't want anything bad to happen. It's just ironic, and it's bizarre like everything that happens with Dr. Fauci. It's just
I genuinely
bizarre.
hope he recovers
We
because
do.
he has science, and
Right.
science is valuable.
And see, we need science. We need science to recover, because without science, we're lost. Dana Lash, thanks so much.
Yes, I agree. I agree. Thank you, Jesse.
Joe Biden has become the Rodney Dangerfield of presidents. And why did Nancy Pelosi drag Paulie P. all the way to the Vatican to meet the Pope? We have some theories. The left has been furious since the Supreme Court struck down Roe v. Wade, and they've directed a lot of their anger at one justice in particular.
You better hope that they don't come for you, Clarence, and say you should not be married to your wife, who happens to be white.
He's been a person of grievance for as long as I've known him. Resentment, grievance, anger.
Clarence Thomas.
Why do we think that is? Clarence Thomas didn't write the ruling opinion. That was Sam Alito. But Thomas is the one getting the majority of the smoke. And it's not just protesters. More than 300,000 people have petitioned to impeach Thomas. Dr. Ben Carson has an idea why.
For many on the left, the only thing worse than Satan is a black conservative. And, they feel that Clarence Thomas is ripe for particular scorn because he is black and he's supposed to think a certain way.
Joining me now is South Carolina Senator Tim Scott. That was a strong statement by Carson. The only thing worse than Satan is a black conservative. Do you share that opinion?
I certainly think that the greatest threat to the liberal coalition are black conservatives who stand up and think for ourselves. We represent the fact that the African American community is not a monolithic community. If you could ever break the stronghold that the Democrats have in the African American community, the entire coalition falls apart. And think about this, Jesse. President Biden's approval ratings have never been lower in the African American community and the Hispanic community. The last thing people want to see are people like Clarence Thomas, Ben Carson, and myself standing up and making common sense popular everywhere in the nation. And oh, by the way, we happen to be black. That is a great threat to the entire coalition on the left. So they want to shut it down, cancel Clarence Thomas because he dares to think for himself. But more importantly, don't you think for yourself, because they want the price to be so high that you don't ever dare to leave wherever they say you should sit.
I think you put it absolutely perfectly, Senator. Have you met Justice Thomas? Tell the audience what he's like, because I've never met him, and everything I hear, he's probably like one of the most charming and funny guys there is.
You think about what Justice Sotomayor said about Justice Thomas. She said he was kind, affable, first to celebrate the victories in your life, whether it's your child's birthday. He is such a warm-hearted person. Those were her comments. But the Clarence Thomas that I've met is consistent with what she said. This is a person who rose from abject poverty in rural Georgia to live the American dream. Because in America, all things are possible. Clarence Thomas is a person who has affection for everyone, even those who disagree with him, because he understands that you can disagree without being disagreeable. Clarence Thomas is a class act.
Yeah, he is, and I think that's another reason why they don't like him, because of his rise, because he didn't take handouts from the government. He did it all by himself, and they can't tolerate that. All right, Senator Tim Scott.
He tells the story of America.
You're right, and they don't want that. They don't want that story. That story doesn't work for them. Thank you so much for joining us on Jesse Waters Primetime.
Thank you.
Imagine you're on a date with your significant other, enjoying a beer, maybe a full-bodied cab, when all of a sudden, a man walks up to you and starts hitting on you. He tells you how beautiful your eyes are, how good you look in that dress, and then he asks you for your number right in front of your boyfriend. It doesn't get more disrespectful than that. But guess what? That's exactly what's happening with the Democratic Party right now. Joe Biden is America's washed-up boyfriend. And every hot-blooded lib with a pulse is flirting with the White House right in front of him. It's only been 16 months into Joe Biden's presidency, and other Democrats are openly workshopping presidential runs. I've never seen this before. We're not even at the midterms yet. And Democrat power players are already throwing their weight behind other candidates.
We know that this podcast includes Vice President Harris. I support her, and I'm just saying that if he chooses not to run again, first on my list after him will be Kamala Harris.
I understand why Joe's upset. And the New York Times has noticed, writing, Mr. Biden has been eager for signs of loyalty, and they've been few and far between. And listen, I get it. I'd be angry too if Johnny kept trying to steal my job. But at least Kamala is still acting like she's loyal to Joe.
Joe Biden is running for re-election, and I will be his ticket mate.
Full stop.
Full stop. That's it.
Sure. Whatever you say, Kamala. And it turns out she's not the only
Surprised she didn't
California
give her.
liberal sneakily gunning for the White House. Governor Gavin Newsom says he doesn't want to run, but his actions tell a much different story. He bought more than $100,000 worth of airtime in Florida. That's kind of fishy, right? And then, of course, there's Cortez.
There's some speculation as to whether President Biden is going to run in 2024. There's some reports that he's a little frustrated that people keep asking because he keeps on saying yes, and people go, "Are you sure? Are you sure?" I know somebody who's going to turn 35 about a month before the election in 2024, and they represent New York's 14th. Is that job appealing to you at all?
I think that...
Theoretically.
Listen, I think that we need to focus on keeping a democracy for anybody to be president in the next couple of years.
So it's possible.
I don't know about
I don't know if AOC can run for president
You
because
don't
she
know what
has
a
a wedding to plan.
democracy is.
And apparently the wedding planning isn't going well.
How are the plans going?
it's a little tough right now to plan something with all this going on,
And
but
supply chain issues.
yeah,
obviously.
supply chain
Exactly.
issues.
Can't get baby breath this time of year.
but we're really excited, and we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out along the way. It's going to be very interesting planning a wedding while serving in Congress, but I'm sure others have done it before, and we'll do it in the future.
But if planning a wedding and running for president is too much for the Congresswoman, Crooked's always waiting in the wings.
There's no scenario in 2024 that you would even remotely consider. I can't imagine it. I really can't. But what I can imagine is staying as active and outspoken as I can.
Kayleigh McEnany is co-host of Outnumbered and former White House press secretary. This is just downright embarrassing. I'm embarrassed for Joe Biden. Are you?
I am. I mean, this is like when your 2-year-old Jesse says over and over again, "I'm going to be a unicorn, I'm going to be a unicorn." You're like, "Yes, sweetie, you're going to be a unicorn one day." I mean, that's Joe Biden. He's the 2-year-old, and every member of his family is saying, "That's not going to happen, Joe." There's one moment that I think is just encompasses it all, Jesse. I can't get it out of my mind, having been in this position before, riding Air Force One back and forth. It's this moment when Mayor Pete commandeered Air Force Two, which is Kamala's plane, right? She's the next person in line, the heir apparent. And he's asked by the press corps, "Are you going to run in 2024? And rather than saying full stop, no, the president's running in 2024, he says it's 2021, and the whole point of campaigns and elections is when they go well, you get to govern. That would be like Alex Azar or Ben Carson or Elaine Chao commandeering Mike Pence's plane and not saying President Trump is going to run again. It's remarkable. But this disrespect goes all the way back to last year.
Yeah, and if that had happened in the Trump era, Trump would have put him in Gitmo. You can't just be riding around in the number 2's plane and acting like they're not running for re-election. But you know who Biden should be mad at? Colbert, Dana Bash, all the pundits on the air asking all the Democrats, "So are you running for president?" I mean, that's just, it's so obvious. I think you should just boycott them and never go on. Oh, wait, he would have to have gone on them before to boycott.
That's exactly right. It's a late night comedy host, and there was this deluge of articles, just this, ferocious flood of them 2 weeks ago. New York Times, like Washington Post, I think there was a Politico one, some of them elevating Gavin Newsom, and all of them questioning if Joe Biden's going to run. I mean, these are your friends. These are the guys who are in lockstep marching behind President Obama. And here they are fielding a flood of Democrat operatives, all undermining the president anonymously on background. It is remarkable. He's lost the press. He lost the people a long time ago.
Yeah, it's like people planning a retirement party right in front of your face when you're not ready to retire. It's not a good look. All right, Kaylee,
Exactly.
thank you so much.
Not at all.
Always enjoy having you
Thanks,
on.
Jesse.
What were Fancy Nancy and Paulie P doing at the Vatican? Primetime investigates. Primetime's been turning up the heat on the Pelosi's for more than a month, so they decided to schedule themselves a little Roman holiday. No one's going to ask Paulie P about his DUI while he and Nancy sip wine in front of the Coliseum. And hey, you can't get a DUI on a gondola. So they'll have a little chance to rekindle their romance without worrying about California Highway Patrol. But this isn't just a vacation for the Pelosi's, it's also an opportunity for redemption, with a little help from Il Papa. Nancy and Paul took a trip to the Vatican and enjoyed an audience with the Pope. But what else did they do? Did Paulie P go to confession? Maybe he told the Pope somebody else was in the car with him when he crashed his Porsche over Labor Day weekend. Did they ask the big guy for forgiveness? No, not that big guy. That big guy. Maybe they prayed that our friend Allie, hey Allie, would drop charges against Paulie P next month. And of course, they received communion from the Pope's number 2. Even though Nancy has been a staunch supporter of abortion, which, last time I checked, was a big no-no with the Catholic Church. The Archbishop of San Francisco banned the speaker from taking communion at her home church, so she had to travel all the way to Italy to get it. That is a big carbon footprint for the body of Christ. And Catholics here in the States, not too happy with her, or the Pope. Brian Birch is the president of CatholicVote.org. All right, Brian, what do you think's going on with Nancy and Paul going to the Vatican, seeing the Pope? What's in play?
Well, I think Nancy Pelosi's repeatedly made clear she has no respect for Catholics or for the teachings of the Church. She's repeatedly held herself out as a devout Catholic, despite her aggressive and extreme support for abortion, including painful late-term abortions. Now she goes to the Vatican, politicizes the Eucharist, and participates in a mass with the Pope and partakes in what Catholics believe to be one of the most sacred parts of our faith. Jesse, this isn't some debatable issue like climate change. This is a life and death issue.
Do you think on the heels of Roe v. Wade, she was trying to make a big symbol at going to the Vatican and receiving communion? Or do you think she was doing this maybe to get a little blessing from the Pope for Paulie?
Well, I'm not sure what her intentions were, but I think it's pretty clear over her entire political career that she's used her faith repeatedly as a public badge of legitimacy, despite, again, this position that she's held. Recent polling showed 84% of Catholics believe that Catholic politicians who oppose church teaching on grave matters like abortion create confusion and disunity. 74% of them said Catholic politicians should not present themselves for communion. So Nancy Pelosi inside the church is a source of confusion and disunity. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here talking about her tonight.
All right. Brian, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
We've got Baldwin, Bison, Woody Allen, and news. Plus, I'm reading your texts. So Wednesday, time for Water's Cooler. See what we did there? Joining me for some bizarre stories is overnight anchor Ashley Strohmeyer. First up, Ashley. If you're traveling to national parks this summer, be smart about it. A man was attacked by a bison while trying to save a little boy from a charging beast. The man was then airlifted when the 1,800-pound animal plowed into him. But first of all, what is a bison?
So
that thing was 1,800 pounds.
That's
and
heavy.
if you read through the story, it said that the two parents of that little kid, they were walking toward the bison. It just doesn't make a lot of sense.
No, that's dumb.
And then the poor guy who got hurt, he was just a bystander who was in front of him being like, well, I guess if the parents aren't going to do anything, I'll have to step in.
The parents didn't do anything.
No, they just stood there and watched. And then this 34-year-old who came in to rescue him, he was literally dangling in his mouth. If you watch closely on that video, it was crazy. But I felt so bad for that guy.
Is it a buffalo? Is that what a bison is?
Oh, Jesse, don't ask me this right now.
I shouldn't even be asking it. We're going to get a lot of text messages about that from our fans out there. All right, next up, Alec Baldwin can't catch a break. During an interview with Woody Allen, yep, that Woody Allen, he suffered some technical difficulties and yelled at his maid, in Spanish, of course, to keep his dogs quiet.
You can commute.
You broke up there. Can you hear me? Hold on. Okay.
Leonela! Leonela! Basta! Las palitas, basta!
Ashley, were the dogs creating the problems with the internet connection?
What was she going to do? Was she going to fix Woody's Wi-Fi? Like, what was he yelling at?
I don't know why he was yelling at his maid when he lost Wi-Fi connection.
Well, and then I went through Twitter, and there were people on Twitter being like, I speak fluent Spanish. I have no idea what he was saying.
That didn't make any sense.
No.
That was Spanglish.
He was just staring at the camera. I'm like, are they both? Woody's gone. Is Alec frozen? Who's he yelling at? What does he want her to do? It's bizarre.
It's a guy who murdered someone interviewing a guy who's accused of molesting children. Not the greatest interview of all time.
They were not happy about
That's why the Wi-Fi broke it up. They said, you guys cannot talk to each other. You got to stay apart. Finally, isn't flying bad enough these days without a passenger airdropping a nude photo of himself to the entire flight? This passenger took a video of the plane perv after he shared a personal photo with everybody on his Southwest flight. Thankfully, he was greeted by police when he landed. Of course it was on Southwest.
So, yes, you're correct on that one. But people were saying, like, multiple people got it. And his excuse to the flight attendant was, oh, I was just having a little bit of fun. If you saw the guy, it's like, what are you doing?
Let's have a little fun.
This is why I leave my airdrop off, no contacts, no one, because that is the kind of stuff you do not want happening. But
You're afraid of people sending you nude photos on flights. That's why you leave your airdrop off?
No, because I'm afraid anyone's going to send me anything. I don't want anything. And those poor people were subjected to that, and he was just like, oh, just having some fun.
All right, so you're preventing the possibility of receiving nudes by strange men on planes. It's probably a smart idea, Ashley. You never can be too careful. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Water's window. This is very important. This window will save your life, and you can thank me later. I went to the dermatologist. I do it every year, and I get completely naked. Follow me. And he just looks at the skin all over my body, and I mean all over my body. What is he looking for? Cancer. And he didn't find any. Thank God. So I go every year because I'm in the sun a lot. And if you don't go, you miss 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, all of a sudden, you have cancer growing all over your back, or your leg, or your ankle, and then you're dead. So go make a dermatologist appointment and go get screened for little things, and you're welcome. I saved your life after saving the world. Time for some text messages. Margot says, now we really need that dash cam on Pauly P. If Nancy had to go all the way to the Vatican to see the Pope to get forgiveness for her privileged hubby, I think there was someone in that Porsche. Matt from Pasadena, California. I do remember where I was when I heard Cassidy Hutchinson tell her story, sitting on my couch. Same place I was when I heard Jussie Smollett tell his. Jeff from Laurelville, Ohio. Adam Schiff sees no motive for this Cassidy woman to lie. Are you kidding me? How about TV interviews, a book deal, and free shots at every Democratic drink
Probably
fest?
promised her that.
I mean, she'll never have to buy another drink for the rest of her life. Which maybe is why she testified. Maybe she likes to drink. That's just gossip. I'm just gossiping. Tucker's up next. Always remember, I'm Waters, and this is my world.